I know the real reason behind the closing of the old yellow gas station. Me in the back room. How did she know I was back inside? She spoke again. Are you going to come in or just stand outside? It was then that I heard my voice come from the room she was in. Iris, stand outside, Iris. Are you okay, Clyde? She asked with obvious concern. I heard her walk towards the front door. The voice that sounded like me encouraged her. Come outside, Iris. The inflection was still wrong, but it sounded so much like me. Realizing what was happening, I ran out of the back room. Iris, wait! I yelled. She jumped in surprise. Spinning around, she looked at me in confusion, then back to the empty front door. How did you? She trailed off. There's something outside. I don't know what it is, but there's something out there. She looked quite annoyed with me. Clyde, work isn't the place for pranks, you got me. Now stop goofing off before we get in trouble. I glared right back. Listen, Iris, I'm not doing anything. And unless you were crawling around in the bushes a few minutes ago, there's someone out there messing with both of us. She didn't look entirely convinced but apologized anyways. Sorry, I just assumed since it sounded and looked like you that you were behind it. You saw it? I asked. Yeah, well, you know as best as I could. These windows are so old they distort everything. We agreed to hang out together. So long as we could see each other, nobody could pull any more pranks. I was actually starting to enjoy the evening. For the first time, Iris and I were having actual conversations. Eileen, she was paying her way through community college and was an only child. I told her about myself and my plans for after I graduated. We talked about dream vacations and what plans we had for next summer. It wasn't long before we had both forgotten about the night's previous incidents. Iris stood. I gotta use the bathroom, I'll be right back. While she was gone, I went over to the soft drink fountain and filled up a cup. Iris walked behind the register. Picking up her book, she began to read. You want something? I asked, holding up my cup. Before she could reply, something metallic clattered in the back room. Iris jumped to her feet. We both looked at the door marked employees only with apprehension. Stay here, she commanded. Before I could protest, Iris ran through the door into the dark room. A panicked cry came from the dark. Clyde! Just as I was about to rush through the doorway, a toilet flushed. I froze. Behind me, the bathroom door opened and Iris walked out. I felt sick. In the darkness of the back room, I could make out a figure standing just a few feet away. Iris noticed something was up. What's wrong, Clyde? I didn't take my eyes off the figure in front of me. There's someone in the back room. She ran up to me. What? She demanded. Who? Looking through the doorway, she gasped. You better leave. We're calling the cops, she yelled. The figure stepped farther into the dark, disappearing from sight. To death, Iris, came my voice, followed by Iris' voice. Come here, Clyde. There was a pounding of footsteps as the figure charged us. I slammed the door shut just in time. An inhuman scream rang out as the creature slammed into the door. Iris and I held it closed as the door was assaulted over and over again. We didn't relax until we heard the back door slammed shut. What the hell was that? Iris asked. I didn't know what to say. This was too much. Iris jumped to her feet. I'm calling the police. I don't care who or what is out there, it just tried to attack us. I nodded. Yeah, that's a good idea. Iris went to the pay phone behind the counter. She punched in 911, then held the phone to her ear. She hung up and tried again. Damn it, she muttered. Trying a third time without luck, she slammed the phone back into the receiver. Clenching her fists, Iris groaned in frustration. The phone's dead, Clyde. I felt a knot form in my stomach. This wasn't uncommon. The phone was just as often broken as it was working, but it was really bad timing. Now what? I asked stupidly. Iris threw her hands up. How should I know, Clyde? This isn't exactly in the employee handbook. She slumped down in defeat. Hey, Iris? Yes, Clyde? We don't have an employee handbook. A small smirk played across her lips. I know we don't, smartass. With the mood successfully lifted, we went back to our original plan. We would stick together until sunrise. Then we would drive to town and report what happened. That was until a tattered soft-top Fox body Mustang pulled up to the pump. "Oh shit," muttered Iris. We both cautiously peeked out the window. "Do you think they're part of the prank?" I asked. Iris bit her lip nervously. "I don't know, I'm not even sure it is a prank." An old man slowly climbed out of the car. He was balding and wore thin-rimmed glasses. He reminded me of a short, portly teacher I had in middle school. The man fumbled with his wallet, completely unaware of us. After swiping his card, the man stiffened. He looked over his shoulder at something we couldn't see. Iris' doppelganger came striding into the light. Behind me, the real Iris let out a soft gasp. I was frozen in place. I stood there as that thing approached the man. Suddenly, the doppelganger jumped impossibly high and landed on the man's shoulders. He collapsed to the ground under its weight. Iris rushed from behind me to the automatic doors. Her movement snapped me out of my daze, and I chased after her. With the opening of the doors, we could hear the man yelling out in pain. The doppelganger had long black fingernails that it was using to try and gouge out the man's eyes. Before we had even made it out the door, the second doppelganger rushed from the dark. It still looked like me, but more battered and dirty. It held a large rock above its head as it ran towards the man. Raising the rock higher, it brought it down on the man's skull. Iris turned and blocked my view, but I still heard the crunch. It sounded like a watermelon landing on a sidewalk from a great height. Iris shoved me back inside. Once the doors closed, she locked them. I chanced to peek outside. The car stood abandoned in the yellow light. All that remained of its owner was a thick red puddle leading into the dark surrounding bushes. Iris looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "Clyde, I don't know if we're getting out of here." I didn't know what to say. We just watched someone die. My thoughts were a mess. I hugged her. We stood there holding each other, scared to death. Iris angrily wiped her tears. "Come on, Clyde, we need to lock this place down." We pulled down the security gate and locked it in place, hopefully sealing off the front door. Not that it would do much good if something really wanted to get in. The windows on either side of the door were plenty big enough for someone to crawl through. The back door was locked, but for good measure we pushed the baked goods display in front of it. We both froze at the sounds of footsteps above us. Iris covered her mouth to hold in a gasp. "They're on the roof!" she shouted. We both looked to access hatch that led to the roof. It was locked, but how sturdy was it? My heart lurched and a scream slipped out of me. At the front window was my face. Blackened and grinning with its eyes open far too wide. No, it wasn't black. From the nose down, the face was stained with blood. It had been feasting. Iris jumped when I screamed. Seeing the face, she turned me and pulled me into a hug. Wrapping her arms around my head, she pulled it against her chest, blocking out my view of the thing outside. "Just don't look at it," she whispered. "Don't acknowledge its existence." That didn't last. The creature wearing my image started tapping the glass. At first lightly, but with each tap the force increased. Soon the old glass pane was flexing under the force. I looked up at Iris. I saw in her eyes that she knew as well as I that the glass wouldn't hold. The second creature dropped from above to join the first. Cracks began to appear. I was frozen in place, but Iris sprang into action. She managed to move the display, blocking the rear exit all by herself. The window shattered. The creatures stood there seemingly surprised by the sudden destruction. Iris came from the supply closet. In her hand was the broom we used to sweep the floors at the end of the shift. She snapped the head off, leaving a sharp point. Iris had a look to her. It was as if time itself slowed in respect. She took my numb hand and put her car keys in it. She shoved me towards the back door. I stumbled into the back room. I looked over my shoulder to see her charging across the store, improvised spear held out in front of her. The creatures were coming through the window, their faces twisted with hatred and hunger in their eyes. I made it out the back door. I made it to her car. I made it home that night. As soon as I had service, I called 911. I bawled my eyes out as I tried to tell the operator what happened. They heard enough. Someone had died at the gas station, and someone else was in danger. The next morning the police came to my door. they cuffed me and drugged me out of the house. I spent hours getting brutally interrogated. Finally, I was able to go. From what I picked up, the officers arrived to the scene. The body of the Mustang owner was mostly consumed and laying next to the store. Inside there was bloodied hand and footprints everywhere. Iris was nowhere to be found. If it wasn't for the fact that there was no DNA evidence pointing towards me, I would probably have taken the blame. We moved within a week. Despite the charges being dropped within 48 hours, the court of public opinion had determined I was guilty of murder. And probably worse when it came to Iris. It's been 7 years now since they closed that station. I drove past it yesterday. I had to take that route for my job. The windows are boarded up and the blackberries have taken over half the building. But it didn't feel empty as I drove past. Thank you, Iris. You were braver than I could ever hope to be. I hope you can see what I did with my life and are proud. I miss you. I'll be taking the long way home. The extra 4 hours of driving is worth not having to go past that station again.